Tong Hongsheng has been lying in bed for more than 2 weeks. Working for him is difficult as his ankles are now left swollen from excessive internal bleeding. He suffered from hemophilia since birth, a rare genetic disorder which prevents blood from clotting. Tired of this potentially life-threatening disorder, Tong saw hope in 2008 when American pharmaceutical company Baxter offered to place him under a clinical trial to rid him of the defect. Instead of easing his worries, the outcome turned into a nightmare.
Half a year later, the doctor told me that my body has generated antibodies which made the new medicine and all other ordinary medicines ineffective at easing internal bleeding. The only medicine that works costs more than $1,000 per dose, and I have to use 3 to 4 doses every time when I need it. I can't afford that.
So, Tong filed a lawsuit against Baxter. However, he ended up settling for compensation out of court worth 300,000 yuan or around $48,000 in exchange for dropping charges. All the money has been spent on medical bills, and Tong's body is now left in a worse state owing to long-term effects of antibodies brought by the clinical trial. He now seeks further compensation for the damages from the company, but the out-of-court settlement he signed essentially displaced the pharmaceutical company from its liabilities owed to him.
I shouldn't have done that, but I urgently needed the money for my disease, since the only medicine that works is so expensive. Otherwise, I would receive nothing and would die without proper treatment.
Many clinical trials begin like this in China. It starts with researchers who ask many hospitals to find willing participants as test candidates. Both the researcher and participant sign a consent form which stipulates the facts and possible implications of the trial. This contract and process is also evaluated and approved by an ethics review committees before it is signed. As for the agreement signed between Tong and Baxter, experts see it as poorly drafted.
In the informed consent form, the medicine producer and the hospital informed Tong about the risks of antibodies, but it stated that the antibodies were short-term reactions that would disappear in a very short period of time. So Tong didn't know that there would be a long-term antibody reaction. He didn't have a full understanding of the future consequences of the trial.
Zhai Xiaomei, an ethics expert who works for an ethics review committee, agrees that more needs to be done.
The core tasks of the committees are to evaluate the benefits and risks of clinical trials, including the consent form, so as to protect participants. A great achievement has been made in evaluating trials for the past few decades in China, but I wouldn't say what we did is perfect. There are still limits. The biggest difficulty is our weak evaluating capability.
There is only one way for Tong to repeal the out-of-court settlement to secure compensation he believes that he deserves. He needs to prove the clinical trial caused long-term antibodies.
There are laws in China to protect trial participants. For example, all researchers must buy insurance for their trial participants. But regulations like this are not functioning in China. As far as I know, not many researchers are buying insurance for their participants. It's unclear how it can be enforced. There are no penalty clauses to punish those who violate the laws.
There's no doubt in Mr. Tong's mind that the medical trial made his condition even worse. He says the agreement he signed with Baxter specifies he would get financial compensation and free medical treatment if that's the case. But even if he's able to prove so, China's current laws don't specify how the agreement can be enforced, and that is one of the biggest problems facing people like Mr. Tong in China. 汤博 CCTV 北京